Hey dudes and chicks, welcome back to West Texas Bushcraft for another super awesome episode. And well, I had to come back out here in the garage and do some more tinkering because I got some tinkering requests. Do you remember the super awesome official West Texas Bushcraft prison shank bushcraft knife? The one, that big dirtification one? That guy? Yeah, he loved that knife. And as soon as other people saw it in the video of the giveaway, they're like, oh, that's awesome, you gotta make a video of it. Well, just so happens I need to make a knife, another little small utility knife. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. And I have a nice little crusty file to use for that. This is one that I had worked with, experimenting with a little bit of flint and steel, and well, I kind of boogered up the edge, so this file is useless to me now. So this will make a perfect little West Texas Bushcraft prison shank bushcraft utility knife. So let's get started. Now, this process is super technical. Not really. I'm kidding. It's not. But this file is not anywhere near as large as the file that I used for the one that I gave away. I want to make a smaller one for myself. So this video will be based off of that. Now the other one, I could cut the rat tail completely off and had plenty of handle to go around with plenty of blade. This will not be the case this time with this one, so this one's going to be a little bit different. So first off, what I want to do is figure out which side's going to be my sharp edge, and since I have boogered this end up right there real good, I'm going to use this side for the blade side. And I need to determine exactly how long I want my blade to be. Do I want it to be that long and then use the full rat's tail, because you can just barely see it peeking out right there? Do I want to use that full rat's tail, or do I want to shorten my blade and get more good wider steel in my palm? So that's what I want to figure out here. So first off, I know right away I want my blade to be about yay long. Let's measure it, since there's a lot of people out there that get real technical with stuff, so we'll measure it. Let's see here. So we're looking at probably about 3 3/8. 3 3/8 right there. That's about where it's going to come up to if I go that way. And I think that's the way I want to do it. It'll still be a full tang. So how I'm gauging this is I put my hand on this and grip it like it was going to be a knife, and then figure out exactly how I like it. Now this right here, I'm going to hook my finger right on the base of this rat tail right there, and then that's going to be my blade and my handle. So at this point, I'm going to mark where I want to cut that rat tail off, which really is not going to be much. About an inch. That's it. Just about an inch. So I also want to figure out where I want my blade to start. So I'm going to mark off of my grip here, right across there. Now I have a mark where my blade's going to start. Like I said, super technical. It's really rough to do. So there we go. I'm going to make that mark a little easier for myself to see. Now I would have normally just used a black marker on this, and I probably will on part of this, but this shows up a little bit better since this is good and rusty. This shows up real good for me. May not for the camera, but for me it does. Let's see here. I don't know how well this is actually going to show up on camera, but we'll see here. So now I have this marked, and I see my knife blade. This is going to be my blade. When you look at this, the handle is going to be considerably longer than the blade. Remember, the blade was about roughly about well, looks like actually about 3 1/4, and then the handle itself is going to wind up being about 4 inches. Let's take that there. See, that's going to be about 4 inches. That's going to be about 3 1/8 and 1/4, something like that. So that's about where that's going to wind up being. So what I want to do here, now all I did on the original one is I just took this and started grinding it here and then curled it up to the point. This one I think I may do just that. I kind of want a little bit of a drop point, and as you can see here, this tapers down. So that's already going to give me a fairly decent drop point. I may go ahead and just try to drop that point just a bit more. So how I'm going to do that, and I'm going to use my good old trusty marker, and I'm going to draw a line. Actually, I'm going to mark my point where I want that to drop to, and I'm going to take a line, and I can either go straight or I can get a good little curve on it. See how that curve is? It kind of gives me an idea how I want to do that. I don't think I want to go quite that deep. So since I messed that up, I'm going to have to use a different marker. Luckily I have a black one here. So actually I think what I want to do is come up right up here to the top of that mark, that original mark, and then work my drop point coming up from here. And remark that to come up to here. Just kind of trace out my line. There we go. It's crude, but I'm going to be working this thing slowly, so I will slowly adjust its shape as I'm going. So now, how am I going to cut that out? The bench grinder. Please remember, I said it was crude. That's why I called it the prison shank, because not everybody has a grinding belt or anything like that, or has the tools to forge something. So this is making something out of what you got. So bench grinder it is. Alright, so let me show you what I'm going to do here. First off, I took the wheel on the grinder here and I oiled it a little bit. I don't really know if it's going to help, but in theory the lubrication should help me from overheating my metal. But these wheels are about as thirsty as a lost hiker in a desert, so it just sucks up every last drop of oil I stuck in there. So I don't know if that's going to help much. So secondary, I have a cup of water right there. So I'm going to wear rubber gloves for this instead of using pliers or something to hang on to this, because I want to feel the heat in this metal. I want to feel the heat, because once it starts getting hot through the gloves, I need to dunk it in the water to cool it down, because I do not want this metal to overheat. If I allow this to overheat, it softens the metal, and then I won't have any good blade retention. Now I could fix that in a forge, okay, but I don't have a forge. Well, I like the oil. It's slinging oil out of it, so that's good. Alright, now I got a rough shape to my blade. I dropped the point just a bit more and took a nice round shape on that right there. I think that's going to be great. That's going to make a great little neck knife. It's going to be good and lightweight. So now I'm just going to cut this off. Charles Hawkins, I've been talking to him when I got the rasp knife off him from the gun show. He was talking about in his classes he has people make some of their first knives with an angle grinder. I thought, well, that's a pretty interesting concept. I mean, after all, they are for grinding metal. Why not do that? So before I go and put this thing on it, I went and did a little test with it, and it's not too shabby. It looks okay, especially that side. I think that'll work nicely. And what I found is, as I'm doing this guard, good metal guard, makes a great guide, because I can get it at the angle that I want and just drag it down there like so to get that angle, and just slowly work it across there until I get the angle I want. So let's turn this thing on. This thing is louder than heck. Let's give it a shot. Alright, so I've gotten the knife up to this point. I've got my overall shape that I like. Let's see here. I cut a notch out with the grinder. I just knocked it on the bench grinder. And the rest of it is still got kind of a rounded edge, but it's a lot flatter than the last one, so I'm pretty happy with that. I know this camera doesn't really like to show that, but you can see by the sheen off of the light how that edge is looking. It's not hair shaving sharp just yet, but it will be. The point, let's see if I can get my hand behind it. The point is not really a super sharp point. It kind of rounds up and then has a point to it. It's not bad. It's good and sharp. It's still stabbable. And I have, this is what it kind of looks like all together. Now at this point, what I did with the other one is I had of course cut it off right about there, and then drilled a hole here for a lanyard loop, and then started wrapping the handle with some hemp twine, and then started pouring epoxy over it. I don't know, man, this is good and lightweight, and I want it to be a neck knife anyway. That's pretty light. I'm almost tempted to leave it just the way it is here. Maybe make a loop on the end here like so, and epoxy just this, and leave this handle here, because man, that's that could be pretty functional right there. That you can actually use the butt of this knife to sharpen your main knife. I don't know, I'm gonna have to ponder that one a little bit. See, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, how things change as I do them, because I start doing this stuff and start thinking about other ways to do it and other uses of it. So I'm going to ponder this before I move any further here and see what I really want to do with this. Okay, so I've decided to keep this knife pretty much this way. It's just too multi-purpose not to, and you know about me and multi-purpose. I mean, this can file, this can provide a sharpener for my main knife. You know, that notch right there is great for a fire steel. This one here, I actually rounded this end off a little bit. I may sharpen that back up and give it a good sharper tip. That right there would be great for flint knapping and knapping glass or whatever for arrowheads. Man, just the just the rigidness of that. I can cut notches with that. I really think it should stay that way. I really do. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've been sitting here pondering it, and really and truthfully, you know, I'm nervous about knives that don't have a good finger guard. So I'm going to put a finger guard on this, and it's not going to be your typical everyday finger guard. I am going to use these. I'm going to use some pennies here, and I am going to JB weld those on here like so. But I'm going to take 3 pennies. I'm going to cut one that'll fit right down in here and flush with that, and then JB weld this stuff together. So that'll give it a cool looking touch to it, plus it'll give me something that my finger won't slide over and get down in that blade, because once I put an edge on that, I'm liable to cut a finger off. So let's see how we're going to do this here. So I've already kind of figured this out about how I want this. I want to gauge the depth on this by sliding it to a point where I am happy with that. And I'm thinking right about there is a good place for that. So I got my old trusty marker again, and I'm going to mark on this penny right on the edge, even with my shank. So I'm going to take that penny and I'm going to lay it right on top of this one, flush, and I'm going to mark the other penny in the same spot. So I'm going to use this little mixing stick as a straight edge, line that up. We got the old trusty crusty marker again, and I'm just going to get me a line right across that. Now that I have my line, I'm going to use these dikes the other direction because it was too deep that way. I'm going to line that up on there, make sure I hit that line just right, or it's going to throw this whole thing off. There we go. Pretty well on that line, and I'm going to give it just a good squeeze. There. Well, I did cut it all the way through. Awesome. So that's good. So now I'm going to go clean that edge up just a bit and rough up the back sides of these 2 pennies here. I'll JB weld that together, and that'll slip right up on that knife like so, and give me a really good finger guard. Okay, so here's what I've got here is I've cut 2 of those little slivers of pennies and stacked them, and the epoxy is setting up on those right now, and I've laid it on one other penny here. Once that sets up, I will put epoxy on this part and then lay the knife over that where I want it to go, and then put epoxy there and on top of the knife, and lay the other penny on top. So that way it's a good sandwich. 1 penny was not thick enough. 2 of them was the perfect thickness for that knife. Okay, since that front's moving in, it's a little cooler out here, so this is setting up a little slower. This is the quick 5-minute epoxy. I said I was going to use JB Weld, but I decided to go with this because it's clear, and I can see the edges of my pennies, and when I go to really lock this thing in, I don't have a bunch of gray mess all over my project. I don't like messes, so therefore I want this to be nice and clean. So I'm going to use the 5-minute epoxy, which ought to be just plenty. I don't think I'll be bearing enough weight on this knife to worry about busting my epoxy loose. It's just not going to take that kind of abuse. So I'm going to take my piece of penny here and just go with a little bit of fine bit of this stuff, because right down here where my cuts are, there's really not a whole lot in it, so I really want to make sure I get those. That'll help hold this thing together, and just wow, you can't even see it. It's not even on the camera. There it is. And just kind of work those down into there. So now I'm going to take another little dot of this stuff and just smear it on the face of this penny right here. Get a little bit toward the edge. I don't want too much to ooze out of here because I don't want it to get into my ribs on my file a whole lot, but I want plenty on here so the thing will stay. Then I am going to line that up exactly where I want it and lay the knife down right there. That's where I want it. So now to finish this off, I'm going to take a little bit more epoxy here. I'm going to put it down in this seam real good. To make sure the knife adheres to it real well. There we go. And on the back side of this one, I'm going to go ahead and put epoxy on it. Now I'm probably going to have some stuff ooze out of this, but that's okay. I have other files. I can file it right off. And I'm going to put the pattern of this like so, and just really try to straighten that up. I want that nice and straight and pretty. And give it a good press. Make sure that that design on that penny is right where I want it. There we go. Now I'm going to let that sit for a while until it's good and set up. Alright. So the prison shank number 2, Mark II, let's call it the official West Texas Bushcraft Prison Shank Bush Knife Mark II. Yeah, that's what we'll call it. Anyway, it's pretty well done, with the exception of a good sharpening and a sheath. Here's what we have. The epoxy is still not completely set up on it yet. It's still pretty sticky, but what I've done is I went through and I sealed off all the edges and got that on there to where it's all touching the file, because I want to make sure that sticks very well. I don't want that to come off. Also, because the sizes of pennies are a little bit different, I floated the bottom with epoxy so it has a nice smooth edge on it, and also went on ahead and floated the faces of it too. I like that new style here with the shield, so I used that on the front, and on the back side I have one from this year, 2012, so that way it also dates my knife. Pretty cool. So now I have a finger guard that looks pretty darn cool as well. I have a notch there for a fire steel, or I could use the back side of it. Down here on the bottom will make for great glass snapping. I have a file for whatever uses I need a file for, and everybody knows the good uses of a good file. You can sharpen a knife with it, you can cut notches, you can there's a million uses for a file, and I have plenty of it left on the back side here for good use. Now I did give up a good 3/4 inches of file to put the pennies on here, But I figure safety is a big concern, but this is still, there's still plenty here to use. So the very next video you will see is going to be building a sheath for this little bad boy here. This is good and lightweight. This doesn't weigh hardly anything. It's going to make a great little neck knife, good little utility knife. I'm really looking forward to using this. So I'm going to go in there and put an edge on this thing, and then here within the next couple days, which will be different for you because you'll see it pretty well instantly, make a sheath. And I have a pretty good idea of how I'm going to do it. Now let's see if we can just stick to the plan this time, huh? That'd be awesome. So you guys go out there, make yourself some of your own little tools like that, and give me a video response. I'd like to see what you guys do. So until then, you guys go get dirty, have fun, be safe, and don't cut yourself.